So every culture has stories of monsters, and I feel like every culture passes them down from generation to generation, but there are some stories that are a little bit more credible than others. A lot of the times when you hear these stories, they could be from your neighbor or your grandma, but imagine some of the most trained people in the world telling these stories. Would that incline you to believe these stories even more if they came from trained professionals? Because that is exactly what we're going to be going over today. It seems that the concept of war brings out the monstrous side of humanity, but apparently it brings out a lot more monsters than just that. Today we're going to be going over some of the most famous stories of monsters seen by armies all around the world. Now these stories come from different time periods and different wars, so do keep that in mind. This is Sinister Stories, and I hope you all enjoy the video. Starting off our list is going to be the U28 Sea Crocodile. Now story has it that during World War I, there was a British steamer boat called the Iberian, and it was cruising off the coast of Ireland. Rumor has it that it was transporting something very important, but people weren't really sure what it was. Everything seemed to be going fine for the Iberian until it was suddenly attacked by a German submarine called the U28. The Iberian tried its best to escape from the U28, but it was impossible. The submarine was just too fast. And after a small skirmish, the Iberian was hit by 2 missiles and eventually started to sink. Now this might seem like any other military skirmish, but what makes this different is what the German U-28 captain Baron von Forstner said in a German paper. According to an article, Forstner sat on top of a submarine as he watched the Iberian sink. Now about halfway through the sinking, the boiler room at the bottom of the Iberian blew up and caused the boat to explode. Now according to Forstner, this caused a giant sea creature to fly into the air in broad daylight. The boiler explosion propelled the sea creature into the air so everybody could see, and everybody got a really good look at it. Now, according to the captain, the creature looked to be about 20 meters or 65 feet and it had 2 sets of really strong hind and front legs that looked like they were really good for swimming. He said it really looked like a crocodile. The captain stated that whenever the animal flew into the air, it was in the air for about 15 to 20 seconds. That's how powerful the explosion was. Many people think that if this story is true, the crocodile could have been a Thalattosuchia, which is an ancient form of crocodile that lived back with the dinosaurs. Now people say this story could have been made up, but apparently the 6 people on the submarine saw the creature. But unfortunately, most of them died, leaving only one survivor who never talked about the incident. So what do you guys think? In 1919, an Oklahoma newspaper published a terrifying story about a World War I veteran called F.J. Newhouse. Now the story takes place in the trenches of Mons, and it includes a terrifying wolf-like beast. Now apparently the story started in 1914 when Captain Yesk of London took 4 soldiers into no man's land on patrol. Now they never returned, and people actually thought that they were killed by Germans. That is, until their bodies were found. They were located in no man's land, completely mauled and their throats ripped out. And this is when the stories began. Apparently they would hear really loud echoes in the middle of the night of howling, and they would see strange movement moving through the barbed wire. There was supposedly a large number of groups that would go into no man's land to patrol and be mauled to death by the creature. Now this went on for a while until apparently a German scientist named Gottlieb Hochmuller was killed in a Berlin riot at the end of the war. Apparently after Hochmuller had died, he had papers that revealed he was trying to put a madman's brain into a Siberian wolfhound, and this could have been the strange creature that everybody was seeing. According to rumor, this was only one of Hochmuller's crazy plans to save Germany from losing the war. Now F.J. Newhouse, the person who wrote the story, was apparently a real soldier, so there is some credibility to that, but apparently the story could fall apart a lot faster depending on who you ask. There are some people who say that Captain Yesk was actually a real captain, and there are some people who have never heard of him, so I guess the story is up for you to decide. Now this next story is going to be a bit different because it's not exactly a monster. Well, at least not how we normally think of them. We're going to be talking about the mist that came out during the Vietnam War. Now the story was told by Robert L. Pollock, a crew member on the C-130 cargo aircraft. Now apparently Pollock and his crew were flying off the coast of South Vietnam when they noticed movement in the rear side cargo area of their aircraft. Now according to Pollock, he saw some kind of gray mist swirling and forming near the back of the plane. Now the mist started turning clockwise and eventually became bigger and bigger and started heading towards the front of the plane. Now Pollock originally thought that this was some kind of technical error, but he couldn't find the problem anywhere. And all the crew could do was back up near the front of the plane while the mist came towards them. Now eventually they had nowhere to go, so Pollock stuck his hand in the mist and it caused the mist to disappear. After they found out nothing happened, they decided to walk in the mist to see if it would go away. Now the mist didn't hurt them, it didn't affect their breathing or anything like that, but one thing it did do was completely block out any light from entering it. According to the crew, whenever you entered the mist, it was like being in complete darkness. They couldn't see anything. Now they didn't really know what to do, so they just kind of stood in it until the mist started going back slowly. Now it reversed and reversed until it eventually got back to its original location and swirled counterclockwise until it disappeared into thin air. Now the crew didn't really know what they experienced, so they didn't talk about it for years. Now this last story is going to consist of one of my favorite wartime cryptids, and that's the rock apes of Vietnam. Now these rock apes are considered like the Bigfoots of Vietnam, but they're called rock apes for a very sinister reason. Well, they throw rocks. But to be fair, rocks were thrown at them first most of the time. Now these creatures weren't that aggressive, but they did throw rocks at you whenever you threw rocks at them, and occasionally they apparently threw back grenades that were thrown at them. I mean, to a big Bigfoot creature, I'm sure a grenade would just look like a bigger rock, right? Now, people thought that these could be different kinds of monkeys, like orangutans, but orangutans are not in that area, and all the other monkeys are way too small to fit the description. But the reason this story is so famous and so well known is because so many soldiers saw them that it makes it extremely credible. There was even a hill in Vietnam where the monkeys were seen so much that they called it Monkey Mountain. Now, according to the story, these rock apes were about 6 to 7 feet with brown or reddish hair, and they traveled in packs. So they weren't like your usual American Bigfoot where they walk around by themselves. And the weird thing is that these apes seem to be used to humans because they weren't scared of them. They actually scared soldiers a lot more than the soldiers scared them because they thought that they were enemy troops. Some scientists claim that if the rock apes were real, that they lived so far from humans that apparently they didn't even see them as a threat. That, or they saw humans as small and weak and knew that they could outpower them at any time. Now, many skeptics think that the weed use in Vietnam was actually the cause of a lot of these hallucinations, but weed is not a hallucinogen, so this kind of doesn't hold up. Other skeptics say that it was the cause of LSD, and while that can hallucinate and was very popular at the time in America, it was not widely used by soldiers during the Vietnam War. But anyways guys, there you have it. These are some of my favorite wartime cryptids, and I hope you all enjoyed. This has been Sinister Stories, and thank you for joining me. If you want me to cover any more topics or want to comment something about this video, make sure to leave that in the comments below and I will reply to all of them. Anyways guys, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I will see you all in the next one.